Great, thank you so much, Erin. So welcome everyone to today's STC Knowledge Exchange. I'm Liz Pohland. I'm STC's Chief Executive Officer and the moderator for today. And I'm joined by Erin Galilee, Director of Membership and Community Relations, who's also our moderator today for this discussion, and our distinguished panelists who are on camera. I'll introduce them in a second. Today's session is titled How Volunteering Can Help Your Career. And we are basically talking about volunteering as a two-way street. It can benefit you as much as the cause that you choose to support. Have you been wondering about how to volunteer? You're going to find out today a bunch of advice from our expert panelists. So joining me today are Lori Meyer, Beth Sellers, and Anne-Marie Queeney. So Lori Meyer is an STC fellow and a member of many STC communities. She currently serves on leadership teams for the Rochester and Florida chapters, as well as the Instructional Design and Learning and Technical Editing SIGs, which are our special interest groups. She is immediate past president of the Rochester chapter. She has served as president of the East Bay and Washington, D.C. Baltimore chapters, and is serving as an ad hoc director for the CAC, which is our Community Affairs Committee. Lori holds a full-time position as a writer at a cybersecurity firm in Northern California, where she lives with her cats, Daisy and Lucy. And we just saw Lucy a second ago. Welcome, and thank you for being here, Lori. For over 20 years, Beth Sellers has been increasingly responsible for technical content strategy for software and hardware organizations. She combines her passion for writing with a strong knowledge of adult training pedagogy. Beth gets excited about educating and coaching others and developing their writing skills. Beth calls herself a volunteer junkie, always looking for ways to give back to her community. In addition to a Master's of Arts in Technical Communication, Beth received a Master's in Public Administration, focusing on nonprofits. She looks to share her inside knowledge in volunteer management to help writers expand their portfolios. Welcome, Beth, and thank you for being here as well. And last but not least, Anne-Marie Queeney has spent most of her technical communication career as a senior document specialist in the medical device industry. She has her own consulting business, AM Queeney LLC. Anne-Marie is a 2020-21 board member and Community Affairs Committee chair. As a longtime volunteer and supporter of STC's communities, she enjoys working with leaders and volunteers to strengthen their chapters and virtual special interest groups. Her personal volunteer journey began over 10 years ago when she became the Technical Editing Special Interest Group's programming chair. Since then, Anne-Marie has served in officer positions and as chair of several committees for the Technical Editing and Policies and Procedures groups. She received the Distinguished Service Award for her contributions to the Technical Editing SIG. In addition to her STC activities, Anne-Marie is also a board member and volunteer for a nonprofit historical organization, the largest of its type in her state. So welcome, Anne-Marie, and thank you to all the panelists for being here today. I think we're going to start with a quick poll so we can find out who's in the audience. This often helps our panelists tailor their conversation and their discussions about who's here, and it gives us a little bit better idea of how many of you have been members, if you've been involved with STC before, how long you've been around. So we'll have Erin run that poll real quick. While she's doing that, we'll take a look at the results. So it's great to see so many of you here after a holiday. Thank you for joining us today. Let's see, I think we've got a handful. I hope you all can see the poll. If you can't, please let us know in the chat. And also, I'll say throughout the discussion today, feel free to ask the panelists any questions you may have about volunteering in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on that and hopefully be able to get to those questions while the discussion is going, but we will also leave some time at the end of the conversation today to do a Q&A at the end. So I see about 15% of you have answered. So, oh, here come a bunch of responses now. So we have a lot of people who are already an STC member, which is great, but if you're not, we're so glad you're here. So thank you for joining us. Today's session and all of our panel discussions are open to the public, so anyone can be a part of them. And if you have friends who are interested in joining us in the future, please let them know about these discussions. They're always the last Monday of the month. And we've got a lot of people who are new members, which is great, but we also have some people who have been members for a long time, which is also great because they probably have volunteered as well. So if you're in the audience and you have advice that we don't get to about volunteering with STC, feel free to put comments in the chat as well, and we're glad you're here. And then our final question is about what kinds of things you're interested in hearing about in future panels. And I see a lot of responses there. So we will definitely have lots of different panels coming up on these other discussion topics. So Erin, do you want to publish the poll so everyone can see who's here? Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Okay, well, let's get started. So Anne-Marie, Beth, and Lori, I'm going to ask you my first question, which is the fact that you've all been we just heard your bios, you've all been quite involved with STC volunteering or probably volunteering in other ways. Please tell us more about how you got involved, and especially in STC, but any kind of volunteering activity. What made you start doing that? And I'll start with Beth.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. I got my master's in technical communication at Texas Tech, and they actually have a very active student chapter. So that's how I started out with volunteering with STC. I already had my master's in nonprofit administration when I went into technical writing. So it was a natural fit for me to find ways to volunteer through STC and to leverage STC. And my great example for that was the American Society of Training and Development needed volunteers for their national conference. And they called up STC and they said, give us your volunteers and we'll give them a free day at the conference. And that was a real way that I was able to benefit as well as benefit the other group. So I have been benefiting through STC and volunteering with them forever. I was a chapter president in Arkansas when they were trying to also have a satellite chapter at the University of Arkansas. So that was interesting to go back and forth between Little Rock and Fayetteville. And from there, I've been doing a lot of volunteering as a judge for the competitions. And that's a great way to make sure that I maintain my skill set and stay at the forefront, because I'm seeing the newest work. And then I get to collaborate with other writers who are also judges.
Thank you. I also went to Texas Tech, so we're teammates, and they do have a very strong chapter and have for a long time. So Lori, tell us a little bit about how you got involved volunteering.
Okay, well, my first exposure to volunteering goes all the way back to grammar school when I was in Campfire Girls, and we did some collecting of newspapers for recycling, raising money for UNICEF. So I got a taste of it all the way back then. And when I joined the workforce, I was not in tech comm. This is not my first career. I was in advertising and public relations, and I was asked to take part in a volunteer writing and editing project for the Advertising Council. And the company donated my time to help this organization. It was a home nursing association. They needed some press releases and a brochure, so they assigned me to the job. And it was great because this was a volunteer organization, and it took a little bit of the pressure off of me as far as like job performance, because these people were very appreciative of the company's sponsorship of this effort. So I did the brochure, did some press releases, established a nice working relationship with the executives of this nursing association. So it was a great experience. And so, you know, and they gave me a really nice certificate. So I got a good feel for what it means to be a full-time employee and yet serve your community. And I never forgot that experience. Now, my volunteer involvement with STC did not come until several years later when I left advertising and PR to become a technical writer and editor. So I joined STC because the company that I had my first technical editing job did sponsor memberships at the time. So the company paid for my membership, but like many new STC members, I kind of stayed in the background and just kind of felt out the ground. And it wasn't until I attended the Rochester chapter's very successful Spectrum conference. It was a chapter conference that they've been doing since 1958. And um, I went to this conference, and that gave me a really good view of volunteering because for the first time, I saw how many hands of varying experience and skill levels all came together to make an event successful. And I also saw the great variety of opportunities to serve and to lead. You could do small one-time tasks, or you could, jump right in and do a presentation, or you could chair a committee, or you could be a chapter officer and be president. So there was a huge spectrum, and that really impressed me. And I thought, maybe there is a way for me to get involved. I don't have to be in the background anymore. And I had an idea for a presentation, but since I was still new and I was a little afraid, so I ran it by a coworker, and she said, "Well, why don't we propose something together and we'll do it as co-presenters?" Perfect. So we did that, and we did the presentation, and I got to know a lot of people, and that was the start of my volunteer path in STC because I got to know people, I got to know what they were doing. It turned out the chapter needed a secretary, so I took that position. Secretary for an STC chapter is a perfect entry-level volunteer position, and I was really glad I took it. I got to know the council. It was a very positive experience, and I was off and running after that, and I've never stopped since. I have been president of 3 chapters. I've been co-manager of 2 special interest groups. I've held just about every role that you can imagine in the STC chapter, but it's all been good, and it's been, a roller coaster ride in some respects, but it's been challenging, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I have no regrets.
That's great. Yes, Lori is one of our preeminent volunteers. And I mentioned also that Erin has put all of our speakers' LinkedIn profiles in the chat. Feel free to contact them or connect with them on LinkedIn if you do have additional questions about volunteering. They're all welcome to talk to you offline about that. And we also have a Slack channel that has a volunteer we have a Slack work group that has a volunteer channel that Erin can also put in the Slack in the chat, and you can all join that and look at other opportunities or continue this conversation. So Anne-Marie, tell us about your experience starting out with volunteering.
Okay, well, can everyone hear me all right? That's fine? Okay, good. Well, like Lori and Beth, I've also been a long-time volunteer in many organizations, and it was something my family's always been interested in. And I had a chuckle when I heard Campfire Girls because my mom was a former Girl Scout leader. So there you go, our 6 degrees. But I'm going to stay with STC, and I guess I've been an STC member now for about 13 years. And as my intro mentioned, I have been mostly involved with the special interest groups. And those of you who are new to STC, those are virtual groups focused on a particular topic. And the reason why I've done that is I've lived in other parts of the country, West Coast, middle of the country, and East Coast. But for some reason, I've never been really in close proximity to a chapter. So I navigated towards the SIGs. And that's what's great about STC. It doesn't matter where you live, in the US, outside the US, there's a community for you. And so my volunteering began at a summit a few years ago. I went to the technical editing SIG meeting, and the special interest groups often have meetings during the summit, because that's the one time when you get to see somebody face to face and person to person. So the president at the time, Carol LaMarche, was talking about volunteer opportunities. And it was something that I came in with that I was interested in, but I didn't quite know how, like Lori, how I would actually volunteer, especially for a virtual group. And so I was able to hear the different positions. And one position that interested me was the program manager. And they would host and find speakers for webinars. But I had no specific experience as a program manager. But Carol and I sat down and we talked, and that's one of the great things about the summit, where you can meet other STC members and leaders. So I was able to chat with with Carol, and she told me I would receive training, that I would always have the support, which I did. And so I became program manager. And I learned the skills I needed to learn, gained experience, and it was a great experience. And I did that for about 5 years and met a lot of great people, leaders in the field. And from there, I was membership manager. I became the technical editing SIG manager. Also with policies and procedures, I was the program manager, membership, and the manager, which is kind of the equivalent to the president in chapters. The only thing I've stayed away from is the treasurer position. Didn't really want to handle the money. But from there, I was asked to, if I were interested in running for the board, which I did. And it was an honor to be elected. And this is my second year on the board. And I am the chair for the Community Affairs Committee. And I consider that quite an honor too, because, I feel that the communities are really the strength of STC. So it's so great to meet other leaders and contribute there. So that's my story.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. So I think yes, for a lot of people, chapters are the way into volunteering, although there are huge numbers of ways to volunteer. And so I'll ask my panelists now, what do you find to be the top 3 benefits of volunteering? So there are lots of different ways to do it, but what are the benefits to the volunteer, and why should individuals consider it? And Lori, I'll start with you. You're muted. You're muted. Lori, you're still muted. Oh, it went back.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. The 3 top benefits for me, there are many, many benefits, but these are my top 3. Number 1, the opportunity to build and expand your skills that might not be possible in your job, and to be able to take some risks in a safer learning environment, apart from the performance pressures of a job. For example, in the Rochester chapter, I learned my HTML skills in an STC community. And I didn't have the opportunity to do that in my job. And it made a huge difference. I wanted to learn this. I really had an intense desire to learn HTML, and my STC community gave me that opportunity. So that was a really great skill building experience. The opportunity, number 2, the opportunity to focus on service to your community or to a particular cause. So if there's something you feel very passionate about, whether it's like, working with children or animal welfare or history or anything else, volunteering can help bring you closer to that experience and serve your community and serve other people who are interested in that. So that's really important. And for STC, volunteering and leading is a way for me to give back to our profession, and that means a great deal. Number 3, the opportunity to be exposed and to focus on areas of interest that are totally different from your job. So, as much as we love our profession, there may be other areas in your life that you're passionate about. You may be, a patron of the arts, you may love theater, you may love music, you may, love working with animals or children, or, working in the library or something. And volunteering can give you that varied experience that's totally different. It exposes you to different perspectives, different ways of working, different priorities, different types of people and personalities. And it really can add to your perspective of what it means to bring varied hands together to get something done, to promote a cause, to fulfill a goal. It just gives you that different perspective from your job. And you can take that perspective and you can bring it back to your job because you'll understand people better, you'll understand different work styles better. And so it's just a good rounding experience for you, no matter what type of work you do or no matter what type of volunteering you do.
I love that response, Lori. I love that it makes us it makes us better humans, really, because we understand lots of new perspectives. Great, thank you. Anne-Marie, how do you respond to this? What are your 3 top benefits of volunteering?
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to, Lori did such a good job that I'm just going to echo her on the one point about building your career skills and really building them in a safe environment. And when I was a manager and I would recruit potential volunteers, that was one of my selling points. And I say, do you want to learn a new skill or new program? And it could be technical skill, it can also be soft skills like leadership, organization. You'll have the support of the other volunteers and leaders, and you're working in a safe environment. And I always would kid and say, no performance appraisals in the SIGs, and there's no performance appraisals in the chapters. So it's a good way to take risk. It's in a nice, safe environment. And I'd also just like to echo on that and just build a little and say that I've always been a firm believer that no experience is wasted. You can always use your experience or your skills. It may not happen immediately, but you will be able to use them. And I have a good example. Like I said, I volunteer for a historical organization. We're a nonprofit. And when we first began, we offer free in-person programs. But people didn't know, how are we going to register everyone? Well, my experience with Eventbrite, and the only reason I had that experience is when I was an STC volunteer, I was able to give the pros and cons and really explain and help them set it up. And so it did help a whole other facet of my life. And then just quickly, I would say that for volunteering for me, I think it's personal. For everyone has their different goals. For me, it really enriched my STC experience. You can have a valuable experience as an STC member only, but it was when I began volunteering that it became deeper, and I got to see everything that STC offered. I participated more, and I got to meet so many really great, generous people. And I think everyone, in the listening today or on the panel would say the technical communicators and STC members are some of the most generous people with their knowledge, with their time. And like Lori, I feel like I've really received more than I've given. And third, and this I guess also echoes Lori, is that I feel that it grows, it expands your perspective, and not just career-wise. Because yes, once I began volunteering, I could see how vast the TechCom field was. But I also started talking to people, getting personal perspectives from other parts of the country, even outside the US. So I think it really helped me grow as a person too. And so those are my benefits.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. And Beth, I'll move on to you to make sure we don't run out of time here.
Sure. Both of the other ladies have done so well with their answers that I will just be quick and say some of my lifelong friends I have made through volunteering. And I agree, the safe space to take risk is personal as well as professional. I was able to say on my resume that I had managed budgets and that I had done other things because I took that opportunity to do the financial parts of a volunteer opportunity. And it really did enhance my resume in areas that as a staff writer, I really didn't have a way to make that jump until I was able to do that in a nonprofit environment. And it also, especially right now, I work from home right now because of the constraints of the COVID, but it's one of the few ways I'm able to see other people is even if it's just through Zoom, the people aspect of volunteering has been essential for me in the last couple of years with all of this. So that's my addition to the other ladies' great responses.
Great, thanks, Beth. So I do have a question in the chat that I want to address before it disappears on me. How have each of you used your volunteer experiences in your day jobs? And I know that's not a question you got asked in advance, but if any of you want to take that one on or have some ways of responding to that, Lori, I see you putting your microphone down, so I'll call on you.
Oh, okay. Well, I had mentioned that I learned HTML skills through an STC chapter. And it turned out that in one of my jobs, they wanted to build a small help system for a supplementary tool that was going to be added to our flagship tool. And they wanted to do it entirely web-based, and they wanted to do it all HTML-based. And I had the skills to do it that I had learned in my STC chapter. I said, I can do this. So they assigned it to me, and I did it. And I would not probably have gotten that assignment if I had not had that experience that I got from building the chapter website. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think Beth just gave us an example of learning the financial side of business and being able to take that to her job. Anne-Marie, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, as part of my position, I wasn't training full time, but I found that my customers or the users of the system needed training. So I took what I had learned from programming, the program manager role, of how to focus a program and how to present it. So that definitely helped.
Great, thank you. Beth, did you want to add on?
Just not only did I get to do the budgeting, and I also was the first place I managed other workers. So I could say that I had managed people, even if I didn't do it in the day-to-day job portion. But when I moved up in a large volunteer organization where I had about 10 people doing what I was organizing them to do, it allowed me to feel comfortable to tell the next employer that I was comfortable doing that role.
Right, and I think one thing that's really important about volunteering is it's something you can put on your resume. Even if you don't get paid for it, nobody necessarily knows that on a resume. There's not always, a dollar amount. It's still experience that you can look to. So I think that's important to remember. Okay, let me move on to my next question, which is what recommendations do you all have for those looking for volunteer opportunities? How and where should they look for them? And Beth, I'm going to start with you this time.
Sure. Let me get to my quick list. I know my number one for people is idealist.org. Idealist is a great place to see what's available in your community, not only virtually, but also feet on the ground. I also go to volunteermatch.org. And I believe Engage Positions is my third one. I'll get that one right. Let me see if I can make it more readable. Engage.pointsoflight. Oh yes, that's the President Bush's 1,000 Points of Light organization is still in production, and they will help you connect with people in your community.
Very cool. Thank you. Anne-Marie, how about you? Where do you recommend people look for opportunities? And of course, they could be within STC as well.
Okay. Well, I think, thank you, Beth, for that list. I'm going to keep that in my mind. I like that. Well, I'm going to focus on volunteering with an STC community because that's where I spent most of my volunteering, although you can also volunteer at the society level. Well, first, I would say, if you belong to a chapter or are interested in a chapter or a SIG, special interest group community of practice, go to the website, and many of the communities will have a volunteer document, and it'll describe the roles, the time commitment, the skills that you might need, and how it helps you develop your career. So I would start there. And if you see something that interests you, there's always a contact name, reach out to them. Another is, as I mentioned before, before I mention that, I'll talk about the SIGs or chapters open houses, or sometimes they call them meet and greets. That's a great way to find out more about the community and also what volunteer opportunities there are. And another one is, and I've mentioned it before, but I will do my little infomercial. If you do attend the summit, and it's a great opportunity if you want to interested in volunteering with a special interest group, go to one of their meetings. They usually are midday, and it's just a great way to meet the leaders and have a discussion on how you feel that you could assist the community. Now, if you're a chapter member or interested in a chapter, I would just go to the website again, find perhaps the president or leadership member, and just email them and say, hey, I'm attending the summit. Will there be a leadership council member at the summit that we can talk about how I can become active in the community? Believe me, as a former leadership member in the SIG councils, you will get a reply. And it's, again, the summit is just a wonderful opportunity. Even if you don't find a connection for volunteering, just you're going to meet a lot of impressive people, generous people. And I know every time I come back from the summit, I'm like supercharged, energized in the field. I'm looking at my list too, so I just continue quickly. More informally, if you belong to a SIG or a chapter, do you have the news? Make sure that you're registered for their newsletter, blogs, or their social media, because that's where a lot of information comes from, where you'll see volunteering or the events. And someone did mention SIGs. I was kind of quickly following in the chat. And there is the newest STC virtual group. They're called SIGs, Communities of Interest, or COIs or COIs. And they mostly communicate on the STC Slack channel. However, sometimes they do have informal virtual meetups and programs on their topics. But that's a great way to become involved immediately. All you have to do is go to STC Slack channel if you haven't been Workspace. If you're not on there yet, it's free as a member. Join the STC channel that you would like and immediately post, and now you're involved. If you'd like to become more involved with the SIG communities of interest in a more formal way, you can contact the facilitators. Their names are on the Slack channel. You could via Slack, or you can also find them on the communities page. And so there's a lot of different ways, formal or more just informal, to find out what's available. And I do want to mention lastly that volunteering for chapters or SIGs or communities is a great way that if you want to expand and think you want some leadership roles within the society, it's a great way to get experience again, and you could become a committee member, committee chair, or who knows, someday you could also run for the board. And I will say, being on the STC board truly has been a really life-changing experience for me. It's positive. I have enjoyed every moment of it, and I would recommend anyone to think of being a future board member. Don't be. I know I was a little intimidated when they mentioned it, but I said, you know what? I've received so much from STC. I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. So that's my contribution to this.
Thanks, Anne-Marie, and we're so glad you did. A lot of people are also putting in the chat. I see some individual chapters and special interest groups putting in information about people they're looking for. So keep an eye on those opportunities, or if you're in one of those local areas, definitely contact, for example, Mike Nelson's looking for people for New England. So that's great. Okay, Lori.
Well, there are so many opportunities to volunteer, both through STC and other organizations. But if you're looking for a variety of volunteer opportunities, they're out there definitely. You can explore public service venues, schools, hospitals, public libraries, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, food banks, any other community organizations, animal shelters, groups related to special interest, local historical societies, art galleries, museums, theaters, scouts, etc. Organizations related to education, like if your PTA has a local chapter, churches and other faith communities, if you belong to a faith community, I'm sure they have ways to volunteer. Um, you know, opportunities that are key to our skills. May be perfect for some groups, such like literacy volunteers. Would probably be a wonderful opportunity for people with our skill set. But my heart really goes towards encouraging volunteering with STC because there are many, many opportunities there too. And Anne-Marie, I want to thank you for mentioning Summit. And I want to thank all of the chapter leaders who are posting in chat about opportunities in their communities because it's there. STC Rochester has opportunities for volunteers. We're looking for a secretary. So other things always come up like that. So you can look at all of those things. And if you belong to an STC community, attend their social events because, you'll meet friendly people and that might just provide you with just enough incentive to talk about getting more involved. And believe me, if you approach any STC leader, they will be more than happy to help you get involved. If you email a chapter leader saying, I'm interested in volunteering, I promise you that will be the best email they get all day. So, there are many, many opportunities. We hope you'll be involved, particularly in STC, but there's no shortage of other opportunities out there in your community and in the world.
Great. Thank you, Lori. So I will also mention that one of my goals for next year is to put a page on the STC website that lists every single type of volunteer opportunity that STC has, whether it be in a chapter or a SIG, whether it be with a community, whether it be up to the board level, whether it be with one of the publications or a conference. There are so many ways that I would like to have them all listed in one place and make it really easy for those of you who are interested in getting involved to just jump right off and find the person you need to connect with. So be on the lookout for that. I'm planning to publish that this next month, so I'm looking forward to getting that up. So let me ask you all this question, which I think is an important one. What advice can you provide about selecting a volunteer opportunity? How do you define and establish personal goals related to volunteering so that you get the most out of the experience, but also so that the person you're volunteering for also gets something out of you and that it's a reciprocal agreement? Lori, let's start with you this time.
Okay, can y'all hear me? I think I'm unmuted now. Okay, well, a few steps that I would recommend. Number one, reflect on what is inspiring you to seek a volunteer opportunity. For example, do you want to expand your career skills? Do you want to build your network? Do you want to give back to your community? Do you want to have more hands-on involvement with something you love, whether it's history, the arts, animal welfare, anything like that? So think about those things because that will help you kind of narrow the scale of where you want to search for a volunteer opportunity. Number two, explore how you can leverage your skills and ability to provide valuable service and what outcome you would like for yourself and for those you serve. And you can do this within STC communities or you can do it outside of STC. For example, one of our IT managers, John, is a very experienced, programmer and computer technician. And he teaches senior citizens how to use computers and smartphones. And he's so good. He can bring any old half-dead PC back to life, and he can turn those old broken down PCs into really valuable computers that can be available to people on limited incomes, and they can learn how to be more computer literate. So I'm always impressed with how he does that. And he has a very demanding job, but he does this anyway because he really cares about these people. So that's a really good example of how someone in the high-tech industry can really give back to their local community, to people in need. And as far as STC is concerned, you can take your project management skills and your, technical skills, your database skills or whatever, and apply them to your community. You know, anything, any skill that you can offer will be, will help build up that community. So think about that. Think about where your satisfaction will come from and how you will serve the organization that you're seeking. Number 3, I would recommend don't hesitate to put your own little spin and your own little vision on what type of volunteer activity that you would really love to do. Think about what would be an ideal volunteer role, even if you've never heard of it before. For example, I was thinking, if I had all the time in the world, what would I love to do? And I was thinking, I'd love to be a kitten socializer. I would just like to go to animal places and just, um, socialize kittens and pet them. And so I decided to do a Google search. I did volunteer as kitten socializer. And lo and behold, I got 2 pop-ups. I got one for a cat socializer at an animal community. And so I read through it. I downloaded the PDF, read the description, and indeed it was for socializing cats. The only issue was that this description was not well written, it wasn't very bland, and it didn't sound very attractive. And I thought, boy, that would actually be 2 opportunities. Number 1, to socialize the cats, and number 2, to help them write better job descriptions for their volunteer opportunities. So, there are lots of things, don't, use your imagination and don't be limited.
Thank you, Lori. Anne-Marie, how do you respond?
I'll unmute. I love what you just said, Lori, because yeah, sometimes you don't know what you need until the until it approaches. So that's great. I love that about finding the own opportunities because you don't know what you're missing until you have it, right? Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, she already gave one of my uh, reasons for volunteering, so I'll go to my other 2 so we don't repeat. I would say before you seek opportunities or start talking to people, do a little self-assessment or a check because it is mutual. And I think Liz had mentioned that it's going to benefit the community or association that you're working with, but it's also going to benefit you, and you should feel secure and happy and comfortable, and the people should also too. So I think just a few quick questions to ask yourself. I always think of volunteering, I take it seriously, and I consider it almost like another job. So almost like if you're going to interview for a job, you really look to see, do you want to be in that place, right? So I would look, and I think foremost, what I've seen volunteers challenged about is time. We're all challenged because we don't have enough time. And so one thing you could do is to really look at your commitment, time commitment, and be realistic about it. Sometimes we want to be over optimistic and we really want to contribute, but be realistic about how much time can I realistically spend or contribute. Another thing you might want to consider is what skills. I think Laura had mentioned that. What skills, what is the real reason for volunteering? And there's a lot of reasons. And last, I would just like to mention that don't let a lack of experience deter you. After all, I got my first position and I had no program manager experience. So I'm like a walking advertisement for don't let lack of experience deter you. You will receive uh, uh, the training, you will receive the support that you need. And again, it's like a new job. How many times have we interviewed for a job we don't have 100% of the qualifications. And sometimes employers don't expect it. They put in so much. They figure if I get 80% or 90%. So, don't, I would say, use the skills, the basic skills that you have, and you'll learn the other skills and you'll learn through experience. But there is one important thing that I would like to mention, and that is confirm what type of support you're going to receive from the community, whether it's chapter, SIG, or if it's your socializing kittens at the cat habitat, wherever it is, make sure, just ask, what sort of training will I receive? What support will I receive? Will there be onboarding? Will there be someone there on a continual basis that I can talk to? What resources are there? Manuals and checklists. It's best, the more you know up front, I think the better your experience will be. And by the way, Lori, there is a cat socialization, Tabby's place, but it's in New Jersey, and I know you're 3,000 miles away. So if you ever visit New Jersey, I will give you the address.
Sounds like we have a lot of cat people in.
Thanks.
So Beth, what advice do you have about volunteering?
So I'm pretty pragmatic. So I'm going to say, first of all, what I do is I go and find myself a job I want. Look at that job description and say, what do I not have today that I need to be able to feel confident that I can apply for that job? And if it's not a job description, maybe it's the STC body of knowledge. Look at what we as a community say we are good at and find your gaps and say, okay, I want to find places where I can work to fill those. And then once you find that thing you want to learn more about, and go around and talk to people and say, maybe it's in your own company and you could go work with the marketing department, or it's your own company and you want to go and they need policy documents and you've only done procedures. Go talk to, the risk department or safety and see if you can write something up for them. And so the easiest place to start is where you already work. But also, once you find a skill you want to gain, put together a business plan. Why do I want to gain this skill? How much time am I going to apply to this? As Anne-Marie said, it is like a second job. And then do the whole job, do the stuff around it. So write your business plan, take notes about how far through the project you got, do a Gantt chart, all the little pieces that it would say that this is a real project, like I'm doing a real tech writing project, because every one of those outputs goes in your portfolio. You won't have come out with one thing. You will have come out with a half dozen artifacts, deliverables that you can show you have not only the way you manage yourself, the way you manage the project, the output, as well as the knowledge regarding what it is you've gotten to write. The other thing I want to plug quickly while I think about it is that if a lot of people are looking to write grants, and there are things called grant libraries, that is just a big book of grants available in descriptions. So if you find a nonprofit who needs a grant written, that's the way you find who has, because each grant provider has to write up what they allowed the money to go toward. So that's how you make that match. You read the grant library description together with what your nonprofit needs. And when you make that match, it's just a form you fill out. Grants look intimidating, but it's really just more tech writing. Once again, fill out the form, show what you did, show how much time you committed to it. So I just wanted to get that one in because I always forget to talk about that, because that's the biggest mystery in nonprofits is where is the money? But for us as writers, just do the whole job, because then you'll end up with 5 artifacts and deliverables that you're able to expose to your manager to say you want more opportunity or to the next job.
Thanks, Beth. I think that's a really great answer, and I love your pragmatism toward it and how you think about it as a real defined activities. I think some people volunteer in ways that's why they maybe fail, because they haven't thought about how to box it in a way that it works in their lives. And so that leads me really well into my next question, which is kind of a fun one. What is one thing you should never do as a volunteer, or what advice do you have for volunteering well? I'm sure we've all seen somebody who's not been a great volunteer. So I'll start with you, Beth, since I haven't started with you in a bit.
The thing to not do, Anne-Marie and Lori kind of already both hit on this. Don't overcommit. My husband does hate the fact that I call myself a volunteer junkie, because I often come back from a volunteer event exhausted, because volunteer for 3 hours and I'll stay for 6, right? Because I enjoy it so much. But then in fact, you can undermine your own success by overcommitting. So be thoughtful about how much time you really can provide, because you'll be your best when you give them your best hours.
And I think that's really important, especially what Anne-Marie said about making sure you ask what kind of support you're going to get, so you don't overwork because you feel like you don't have any support. So I think that's important. Yeah, Anne-Marie, how about you?
Okay. And thanks for that tip on the grant library. See, I'm learning all these new things with Lori and Beth. I would say I'll kind of turn it around and try to make it a positive, but treat your volunteer role just as you would treat your job. So I guess the negative would be, don't think, well, I'm volunteering, I'm not getting paid, so it doesn't matter as much. I think it does. It matters. Number one, if you want to build your skill set and you want to build your resume, you need to show results and success. But also, other people are counting on you, just like in a job. It could be, if we stick with STC, it could be at the SIG level, the chapter level, or depending on what you volunteered for, it could be at the society level. And so that would be one thing. Have fun. Always have fun with your job, but treat it seriously. Just like work. You can have fun and enjoy and be challenged. And the second thing I would say is communication is key. I think sometimes what I've seen when I've worked with volunteers is they don't tell you things, and for some reason they don't want to say that they have questions, or their work situation has changed, and all of a sudden they've had 2 people leave in their department, and now they're doing the work of 2.5 people. I would say don't suffer in silence. We're all here to help. Communication is key. Everybody knows and has had work challenges, so we all know what it's like to all of a sudden not have time. So that's what I would say really is communicate.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Yeah, I think one of the really important things is to know how to extricate yourself from the situation if it's not working for you. And that's sometimes hard. People will stay in a volunteer opportunity just because they don't know how to say no. So I think making sure you're communicating with whoever you're volunteering with is great advice. Lori, how about you?
Well, I want to thank Beth and Anne-Marie for their great suggestions. I'm kind of build on what they said. First of all, never give up your right to say no if a volunteer request is not right for you for any reason. You have the right to say no, and it doesn't mean that you don't care about the situation, or that it doesn't mean that you're not interested. It just means that this is not a good fit for you for time or personal or whatever circumstance. So you maintain that right to say no, never give it up, and people will prevail on you. They will, say, oh, but we need to get this done, or you do a terrific job. This would be a great learning experience for you. We've tried to find someone and nobody else wants to do it. Or I promised the director that we'd have this position filled. Somebody's got to do it. So, people will prevail on you if you say no. But if you stand firm, it's really in your best interest as well as in the organization's best interest. And it doesn't mean you're slamming the door for good. It means that right now, in this time and place, it's not a good fit. And believe me, you'll be better off. The organization will be better off, because if you say yes to a position that's not a good fit, or if you find out it's not a good fit but you just feel you can't get out of it, believe me, and I promise you, everyone around you, the people you serve and the people that you work with, they will pick that up. And that's exactly what you do not want. So, it's okay to say no. It doesn't mean you don't care. It's just, it's not a good thing to do right now. And I would also repeat, never suffer in silence. If something isn't clear, speak up. If you don't have something you need, ask for it. If you're concerned that things aren't working out, talk to the appropriate leader, and you can do that with a positive and professional manner. You can just say, I need to chat with you. There are a few things that just aren't going right, and I just want to get some clarification, and I just want to explain things. And you can come up with solutions. And even if the solution is that you feel it's best for you to step down, then so be it. But yeah, never suffer in silence. And if you need to step down, make sure that you give your leaders some lead time. Say, I've got to step down for this reason. Here's when my last day will be. Here are where the assets are that I've been working with, so that your successors can keep things going until they find a replacement. So as far as volunteering well, just kind of keep a self-assessment as you go through the volunteer experience. At the beginning, clarify what you'll need. Anne Marie made this point before about what support you're going to get, what training, etc. And throughout your volunteer stint, maybe keep a little journal or keep some notes. What are you learning? What is your satisfaction here? How is your perspective expanding? Because this can help you both in your job and just in your approach to life in general. So, just just be mindful of how the experience is going for you. And at the end of a volunteer experience, whether it's been good or whether it's been bad, be sure to part friends. Make sure that you ended on a positive note, that you've left, a clean slate behind, and that you can feel good that you've departed in an organized, professional, and friendly way.
Thank you, Lori. That is excellent advice to end on tonight, this afternoon, or depending on your time zone. I want to thank my panelists for being here. We're coming up on the top of the hour. We have shared everyone's LinkedIn profiles in the chat, and lots of other people have as well. So please feel free to connect with us and ask any additional questions you have about volunteering. Feel free to get in touch with me, Erin Galilee, anyone on the staff about this topic. We also have a general email address that she's showing there, which is stc@stc.org. Write us and let us know what you're looking for and where you're looking to volunteer or plug in. We definitely have opportunities for all of you, and we look forward to seeing some of the people who attended today finding ways to volunteer, hopefully in the near future. Erin, I'm going to give it back to you because I know you have a couple of maybe housekeeping things about upcoming panels that are happening. Oh, and Ray would ask us about volunteering for the summit. Sure. So there are opportunities to volunteer for the summit. You can email us at summit@stc.org if you're interested. We reserve a lot of seats for students to volunteer at the summit, so that they get an opportunity to see what it's like to run a conference, but also attend. But write to us if you are interested in volunteering. We have positions in registration, we have positions in the education areas, helping us with keynotes, etc. So there are lots of ways to get involved if you are interested in volunteering at our conference, which is in Chicago in May. And Erin, I see you're on, so I'll let you take it over. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, and you'll see a slide right now up here for our 2 upcoming panel discussions. One will be next month, the last day of January, about certifications, certificates, academic degrees, and what that all means with technical communication. So please join us for that if you have questions about that higher learning and how to plug in. And also in February, it'll be about content strategy. So please feel free to join us there. And for today's discussion, if you find you have questions, this isn't the end of the conversation. Email us. Connect to any of the panelists on LinkedIn, but also connect to us on Slack. We have a Knowledge Exchange channel in Slack where you can have the conversation. You can connect all of our panelists also in Slack and ask questions there. There's also a volunteer opportunities channel in Slack also where you can introduce yourself, say kind of what you're interested in, and there'll also be opportunity. So it's kind of a two-way street as well. People who are posting opportunities, people who are posting if they're interested in volunteering. So feel free to make those connections. We have a couple people who are volunteers who are helping to make those connections for you. So feel free to, if you haven't been in Slack, get involved, sign in. And if anybody has questions, there were some questions about chapters and SIGs and what do you do if you're not close by, we can chat about it. You just email me, we can set up a time to talk. But thank you all for coming. And please stay connected to us. That's the most important thing. Connect to us in social media and Slack, and just we'll continue the conversation and build this relationship in your network with you. But thank you for coming today, and have a great new year, everyone.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Bye.